So, hey, what's up? Hello. We have Nikki Ryksig here from BobaBoba. Welcome to the Pantheon.
Thank you, Vaughn. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So, let's see. There's a lot of things I can say about Nikki, from the fact that they are an incredible God-tier guitarist to just you as a person being just like this, I want to say, a storm cloud of joy and happiness. 'Cause, like, I see like this cloud, but then like lightning, because it's like all the intensity and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of for those who have not seen you at a show or any of like the number of community things you're involved with.
Mm-hmm.
What is the entity that is Nikki?
I guess, what am I? Well, I'm Nikki. My pronouns are they, them. I play guitar in BobaBoba, and these things have all been said, but I guess more than anything, I guess I'm an artist, but also I serve my community as well. I'm trying to think of a better word for it, but community has always been at the heart of everything I do, and that kind of all started for me when I started as like a young person going to youth run space as well, the center happened to be music. But since then, I've always been involved with community events, whether I was living in North Minneapolis, Frogtown, Burnsville, Minnesota, or now Eastside St. Paul. So I guess, I don't know, community advocate and musician is kind of what I am. And then I think you described me as like a happy cloud storm thing, and I feel like that's pretty accurate. I've definitely done a lot of living and gone through a lot of those dark places. But I think part of that is resiliency and getting through those hard times. And the thing I always try to take away from that is trying to have those things build you up. And it's not those things that define you, it's your ability to get through them. And I think kindness is something that's definitely a skill that's learned. And my whole thing is I just try to be kind no matter how hard things get or whatever crazy situations you go through. If you can hold on to that kindness, I think that's really important. So I guess, I don't know.
Yeah.
Things. I do stuff.
Yeah, and within...
And a nerd. I'm a complete nerd, too.
Oh, yeah, because you apparently, like, hate all anime.
No, I love anime.
Judge
No.
people who...
No. I judge you if you watch dubs a little bit, but besides that, like, watch whatever you're going to watch. Unless you're like an elementary student trying to watch fan service, then I will stop you abruptly, because that's not appropriate, I don't think. But yeah, and
We've
video
all
games.
had that elementary anime scarring.
Yes, we
somewhere
have.
in
We've
our
talked
soul.
about it multiple times. Yes, the dark ages of watching clips 5 minutes at a time and then clicking on one that looks interesting, and it's something that you weren't expecting.
So I'm just thinking, so within both that community level and then as like a musician level, how are you balancing those two roles, or are they more complementary?
I think a lot of it is complementary, and I think a lot of times we try to divide things into like a binary or separate things. And I think a lot of things are intertwined and flow together. And that's not just being like lazy and combining stuff, but I think music is community too. I know we're talking about like mental health and addiction as well today, but really the opposite of addiction is community. So we see a lot of those things in the music community as well, and within our youth too, especially since the pandemic has just heightened everything. But I think music brings people together in a community. We're finally kind of getting back to that with having live shows again. So I think a lot of it goes together, and I think music is part of that healing process as well too. And it's okay if you just listen to music, have fun as well. But I know for me, that's always been kind of my outlet throughout everything too. No matter what I was going through, I would just like pick up my guitar or my bass or like write really sad emo-y like emo kid poems. But like I think it all kind of comes together, and I think music really does bring people together too. So I think a lot of those community aspects and music come together as well, like especially within working with young people and healing too. But yeah, I think it's all kind of intertwined.
Yeah. So this is kind of getting into that next one, but
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Nikki as a person,
Yes.
Nikki as a musician, Nikki as the community advocate.
Yes.
Are all three of those the same Nikki, or how
I think
are?
at my day job I'm a little bit different because I'm not going to say where I work in case they watch this because I don't want to be representing my work right now, but I work within higher education and admissions, so my job is really counseling students, not in a mental health practitioner way. I'm not a licensed mental health practitioner, but yet we'll see. I'm working on my master's, but I get to really help students navigate that journey of college and getting your applications in, getting your GPA up, how are you going to make college work for you. And I think the other thing that's really a huge part of me is being an educator and teacher. So I used to be a science teacher as well, and have over 12 years working specifically with like middle school to high school age students. And I love that because they're so real, and I miss them, and I'll go back to classroom teaching eventually. But I think as a teacher, I very much was my authentic self. And I think within my current job, my day job, I don't say I tone it down, but I definitely don't swear. And I think I've told a few coworkers about my band, and it's my band's weird. So BobaBoba is weird. We're like psychedelic doom space metal Sabbath. I don't know, not John Mayer. But I kind of like to keep my work day separate from what I do within my music. But when it comes to my community outreach and things I do with that, I try to get my job involved with it as well, because part of my job is a community outreach liaison as well, specifically for Eastside, because that's where I'm from and that's what I know, and that's my community I work with. So I think there's some things I kind of feel like a Gretzko sometimes when I go to work. I'm just like, if you haven't seen a Gretzko, it's like the cutest Sanrio character in my opinion. She's like a little red panda. She goes to work and it's an office job. It's like, and then after work goes and does karaoke and goes, and I can't do harsh vocals anymore, but like back up when I did. So I kind of feel like it's really nice to kind of have that freedom to go between the two and kind of put a little bit of a barrier between it. But I think I'm still the same person, just less swearing at work. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so then that also makes me kind of think of just so much of your band is kind of part of you.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about BobaBoba.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Your involvement?
So BobaBoba, I love BobaBoba, and I really mean it when I say that's my favorite band I've been in. And I mean, I grew up being in hardcore bands, metalcore bands. I've been playing shows since I was 12. I was that 15-year-old that would get like snuck into like Station 4 to play 21 plus shows or like to different bars. So I've been playing shows for a greater part of my life, you know, and I've played with a lot of musicians, but I really love BobaBoba because we don't really have a band leader, and I think people assume I am. I'm not. Hi, I play guitar. It's a democracy, and like we all bring our own different kind of style to it, but so I first met Johnny and Joey. So Joey's our old bassist and Johnny and Joey are brothers. What's up, y'all? Hey. So I was at like our friend Aaron's birthday party, and it was at his house, and in the basement there's just a drum set, a bass, and a vocal mic set up. And we went down there, and I was the sober cab for the night, so I was completely sober. Everyone else was just like, everyone's having a good time. I'm sober now, though, so that's kind of funny how it worked out. But I remember I went down there, and Johnny and Joey were just jamming, and they just kept switching instruments, and I got switched in, and I was playing bass. I play guitar in BobaBoba, but just jamming with this, too, I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. And Alex was there with me, and I was like, Alex, like, who are they? And he's like, that's Johnny and Joey Chavez. Like, they're awesome. And I was like, I want to be in a band with them. And so like for like the next like 2-3 years, and these are all of Alex's brothers, like older friends as well. So they're like older than us by 5 or 7 years. And I was like, I wanna play music with Johnny and Joey. Are Johnny and Joey gonna be there? And finally, I remember it was at May Day, like 4 years ago. Andy, our other friend, came up to me. He's like, hey, like, I've been jamming with Johnny and Joey. We need a guitarist. Do you want to come over and jam? And I was super cool. I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. Just let me know what day. And Alex is at May Day too. Alex is my partner, by the way, for everyone watching. Huge part of my life. But I was like, Alex, oh my God. And I just got there and just like freaked out. I was like, oh, I'm going to go jam with Johnny and Joey, dude. You know, this is the coolest thing ever. And like from that moment, like I think like we jammed together at that party. And from there, I was like, this is who I want to play music with. And I'm so lucky and so honored that I got to. And Andy is just such an amazing drummer that keeps me really on task as well. Otherwise, I'm just a whole bowl of ramen noodle soup. I have time blindness. Like I have dyslexia. I can't do music theory. But Andy's my rock and like can take whatever I kind of bring in and make this amazing structure with it. But yeah, so that's kind of how it formed, and that was 4 years ago. But we formed before the pandemic.
Oh.
And our first show was going to be May 2020. And I think everybody knows how May 2020 went for shows. There was no show. And then Johnny and Joey moved out to California for a while, which was really cool because they were going to start a venue with their cousin, but like things kind of fell through, and Johnny moved back first, but like for 6-8 months it was just me and Andy in a room together. But then Johnny moved back, and then Joey didn't come back for a while later, and Alex just was like at practices and hanging out and picked up a bass and just started playing. I think Alex has only been playing bass for a year, and I still am amazed, and he makes basses, and I just am blown away by him every day. But I know I know, right? Like now that you know that, so that's kind of the saga of BobaBoba. And Alex, I think, is going to outshine us all in time, because he's just, I still can't believe it. I'm like, what? Well, like he played guitar. We always jammed on guitar together, but this is Alex's first band.
I'm just waiting for the day that like he just like pulls off as like one of the loser people.
He's just like I wouldn't be surprised. But like that's kind of how BobaBoba came together, and I love it because we went into it where we didn't want to have any kind of like stereotypes added to us. We didn't want to just be a metal band. I think we started off wanting to be a hardcore band, and I don't even know how we got to where we got, but we just brought in our own ideas, and we all have our own different influences and all contribute, and it's so cool to hear the music that comes out of it. And I'm not trying to be like, our band is super unique. Our band is super unique. It's a really weird sound. People are like, what is that? And I was like, whatever, I don't know. I was trying to start like mew metal, not new metal, but like mew, like a cat. Like, could that be a genre? If so, maybe that would be us. But I'm just completely just so honored and happy to be in this band like every day that I am, because it's really cool to see how it's grown, and it's taken a long time, but we're finally releasing the EP and some of these songs we've had for 5 years. 5 years. But they're coming out, so I'm excited. But yeah, that's kind of like the lore of BobaBoba and how we got here, but I don't know. I love it. Everyone's great.
Yeah. And I'm thinking back to what you're saying with the it's almost kind of that thread of kind of just swerving stereotypes,
yeah,
where there's, I think both within music there's this element of like has to be like what is your genre, what is your sound, even within like the huge umbrella that is rock, there's kind of like this whether it's you gotta be raw or you gotta whatever, there's just a lot of things, or even within like I'm just even thinking, say within Alice's Escape, where there's been like oh, so like you guys must be like this like hip hop or like a jazz or a blues. It's kind of just like so thinking within that, or even within like a community based thing where there's this like, oh well, if you're going to help people and work with children, you must have the cardigan and talk a certain height and like have like a but that, as you're very aware, is very exhausting.
It's very exhausting, and I think some people put on different personas within art, and that's really cool too, to have like a character when you're up there. For me, I'm just myself, just more true to my goth self, I guess, than at work. But I think part of it, like we talked about a lot as a band, I think things have gotten better, but I've been playing since I was 12, and I didn't come out as non-binary until a few years ago. So it's like what does it mean to be non-binary? What does it mean to be trans? And like I struggled with that for such a long time, where it's like, well, how do I dress? Do I just put like a gray sack over me and that's like non-binary clothing? Like, what is this? And part of it is like realizing like there's no right or wrong way to be who you are, regardless of what your identity's in. It's just be yourself and be you, you know. But I know it's a conversation we had very intentionally with BobaBoba, where like, Johnny's Latino, Andy's gay, I'm non-binary. And it's like, we didn't want to have to be like put into a box of like Latinx music or like queercore, which I love the queercore community here so much. And I'll play please let us play more shows with you. It's so amazing. But we didn't want to have it be like that. And I'm really happy that things are getting a little bit better. But when I first started, there's so many bands I'd try out for and I'd get turned down because they're like, oh, we don't want a female guitarist. We don't want a female vocalist. My vocal style was like harsh vocals too. I was like, I don't think it's distinguishable, but like there's a lot of horrible like prejudice and like sexism and misogyny and homophobia I've gone through. I know Johnny's been through stuff too. Andy has too, and Alex as well, you know, and it's like, we didn't want to have that be like, it's a trans band, it's a gay band, it's a Latinx band. So I'm really happy that we get to be ourselves and we don't focus on those parts, but we still represent those things for our community as well too, you know. So I think things are getting better and we're seeing a lot more diversity within music, but I think we still have a really far way to go too. And the stereotypes are crushing. And on the community aspect, I say, I don't know, listen. You know, when you're working with communities, you could have all the degrees in the world, all the experience, but really if it's not your community that you're from, going in and listening to your students, to your community members, to business owners and listening to them because they know they're the experts and making sure you're helping in a constructive kind of way. So I used to work up in White Earth, and I always tell this story because I think it's a really good example of stereotypes and trying to help but not really being helpful. So in Natawash, there's the Boys and Girls Club, and these folks donated a whole bunch of money to them, and they gave them an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Great idea, right? They didn't have the money to keep it open for more than a year. So now it's just a storage space. And so think of all that money, what it could have actually gone into for the community if they had listened, instead of somebody coming from the city or outside the community being like, I love swimming and sports. Let's give them this huge Olympic-sized pool. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of relates to a lot of stuff within community work as well. So like listen and humble yourself, you know, and be helpful in the correct kind of ways versus making assumptions, and learn, you know, because it's okay if you don't know. Mm-hmm. That's why you're there, is to learn. But same thing with music too. I think also going into it, not making assumptions about folks is really important, because just because their music sounds a certain way or they look a certain way, their music could sound completely different. You know, it's kind of the same thing of just like taking time to listen and find understanding, you know. But yeah, I think that answers the question. I rambled, but
yeah. And that thing kind of even connects into the next one with just that element of self-care. You talked a little bit about how music is both using it as a healing tool for other people as well as for yourself. Yeah. Whether it's with music or just in life in general, what is self-care for Nikki within this world?
Oh, man, it's a struggle every day. I think especially coming out of K-12 and working through a pandemic in K-12. I think like starting off with boundaries. And I think boundaries were explained to me in a really great way that stuck with me. And I might be repeating stuff that you already know. But like the way boundaries is framed, it's you can't control somebody else's actions, but you can control yours. So a boundary is like, okay, if the situation is like this, I'm going to walk away. Or this is separate from this. Or like a really good boundary I have for myself is I get messages on the band account all day, every day. You know, it's like running a small business, and we all kind of pitch in, but I'm mostly running our social media right now and doing emails, and we have a lot of stuff coming up with the EP release and shows, you know. So, but my rule is when I'm at work from 8 a.m. to 4:30, no. Unless it's emergency, I'm not answering any of that. I'm not looking at our messenger. I'm not looking at Facebook. I might schedule some social media posts to post later in the day or at noon. But like that's been a really good boundary for me, so it doesn't I don't get burnt out on it. But I think the music part is like sometimes I think when you play music, it's hard in the music industry because it takes so much out of you. It is very like centered around ego a lot of the time too, and you have to like hype yourself up and be this thing and be this rock star, this like artist, you know. And I think the world and the industry takes so much from you. You have to remember to keep some for yourself and giving yourself kind of some separation and boundary from it. But sometimes I even get to the point in music where like I don't even want to listen to music anymore, and I hate everything we've written, and I've listened to it 1,000 times, and I just like can't stand to hear Lucky Charms one more time or I'm gonna like scream, you know. I take a pause and I go back and I listen to those bands that made me love music to start with. So like some of the ones I've been listening recently, or they're like a huge staples, like Mars Volta and Omar, his like side project stuff, their guitarist. I listen to that and I'm like, this is why I do this, because I want to continue to create like that art and that music that can connect with other people. And I think as far as a mental health wise thing, I think it's always been really hard for me to tell people what's going on with me. Like if I'm struggling, I've gotten a lot better at asking for help, but it's something I'm still working on because I like to take on so much. I get so excited about things and I take on too much and then it starts to fall apart. But when I get overwhelmed, okay, pause, pick up a guitar. Doesn't matter, like play a song that you already know or just like noodle around or just like listen to some lo-fi like hip-hop beats in the background and play along to it. And that like centers me. And sometimes I get time blindness, not only within, I'm really bad at time signatures and music theory because of my dyslexia. I'll blame it on my dyslexia, but I think, I don't know, I should learn. I've tried. But like I think part of it also is like I'll sit there for 5 hours. The time is gone and I feel better. So I have to be careful because sometimes I'll miss like I don't know, I'm supposed to go to a show or like hang out with friends or go to work. I've missed work sometimes. not recently, but like in the past I'll miss work because I've just been on my guitar. I'm like, oh, it's 3:00. Oops, I'm sick today. It's a mental health day. But I think that's how it's healing as well too. But it's really important to give yourself, I guess, I don't know, some slack, because I think a lot of times musicians are really hard on themselves and trying to make it big or the next thing. And I think it's really important to take a pause and celebrate your accomplishments. Like we have our EP coming out and like, I don't know, like that's just still amazing to me. It's coming out at the end of August. And like, I really want to be conscious of that and take a pause and say, wow, we did this thing. Like I made like this really cool EP with like my best friends. It sounds awesome. You know, sure, like I could listen to the mix and critique it and be like, oh, like this should be here. We should have put more effects here. But instead of like nitpicking it, just let it be and be like, okay, it's done. And this is awesome, you know? But I think that's also the hard thing with music though, is like you start to pick it apart too much. But it's important to just appreciate it too. Especially the stuff you create, because I think we're our own worst critics. More so, yeah, definitely I am. Ooh, I think it's good though. I'm about ready to listen to the EP again. I took like a week, like a 2-3 week break because I listened to it too much. But now I think I like it again. Yeah.
I'm just like overwhelmed by just like the wave of energy / just the wisdom and kind of what you're saying within just that balancing like the love of why you're doing something versus like the grind piece of it.
There's still a grind though, because you still have to release things. You still have to have social media. Oh, the other boundary, not for everyone. So I realized I have an Instagram account, Magical Them. Please don't follow it. Why? There's not a single post. It's just my old Facebook profile picture, and I had to create it so I could log into the Boba's account, or Boba's account, BobaBoba's account. How do I say my band's name? So I could post on our Instagram, but I had to link my Facebook. But now I have like a whole bunch of people that started following me because Andy's boyfriend Nelly put my like Instagram tag on like a video thing from one of our shows a few weeks ago, and now people are following me, but there's nothing. So I think the other part of self-care is I use my Facebook page still because I've had that thing since I was like 15, there's like thousands of people I've played shows with, or bands I've booked or done sound for, and it's like really cool. So I don't want to get rid of that, because it's like friends from Michigan or Wisconsin, or like even out on the East and West Coast that I've gotten to like meet that are musicians. But my Instagram, I don't have a personal Instagram, and I think that's very freeing for me. I have TikTok, but I don't post videos on TikTok. I just like to watch anime edits. The true weeb that I am. Or just like more stuff about like Tears of the Kingdom. Like, oh, what's next? Like, what's going on? What are people making this time? Like, just, you know. But like, I think also, I get it, like some people make themselves a brand as a musician. But for me, that's not something I want to do, because I feel like I would lose too much of myself in that. But for other folks, like, it works really well. So if it works good for you, you should do it. But I think for me, that's also a really great kind of thing for my mental health that I do, is I do have personal Instagram. Y'all can look it up. There's nothing there. There will never be anything there. But I think that helps me a lot too. And then I just focus on the band's social media. Because I don't want to brand myself as Nikki Ryksig, guitarist. Like, that still sounds weird to me, you know, and I think that's probably imposter syndrome, but like, it still sounds weird to me. So I think that gives a nice balance for me, but other folks are different. So I'm not saying don't do that. Y'all can brand yourself and like have your Instagram and social personal, and that's cool. But for me, no, you'll never find it. Yeah.
Would you like to play us one of your soft acoustic ballads?
No, they don't exist. I don't play acoustic guitar. I play bass guitar, keys. I used to do harsh vocals, but I never started on acoustic guitar. I went straight to electric when I was 12. I started on violin though. Hated it. Well, it's great. It's a beautiful instrument. I should play it again. But like, no, as soon as I turned 12, the deal was I got to have a guitar. And then, yeah. So and then ever since then, I never turned back.
Well, then I will get out of your way as you... Yeah, so walk us through. What did we just witness?
We just saw the opening riff from Time Knife, which is going to be on BobaBoba's debut single, The Ritual, coming out August 24th. The last Saturday of August. My numbers might be wrong. Last Saturday of August. And so that was what you saw involved kind of the techniques of tapping and hammer-ons. But really the core of this riff, and I don't know music theory. I don't know any of it. I tried so hard, but I'll explain it in my kind of abstract way. So the one chord we have here, and is what we're looking at. And then the complementary kind of chords, like kind of the harmonizing part where we're tapping. So I say that's kind of our roots. And when we're practicing in BobaBoba, I'm not good at writing this stuff off the spot. I'll kind of get my chords down where it's like these ones, where it's like, okay, there's my roots. Those are my root kind of chords. And I know I want to build off of that. And I'm the only guitarist in a band, so I have to get kind of creative with how to fill the space. So I like to do a lot of harmonizing with tapping. So kind of the chords that complement this chord, is just on the 12th fret right here. And then we go up a half step, or maybe that's down, and then here. So those are complementary ones. And I'll kind of find like those root chords to start. But when we get into incorporating the tapping technique, I just do. but I just kind of like to hit it. And when you hit it, it's kind of, I describe it as like playing piano. So when you're using piano is a rhythm instrument, you know, so you're kind of hammering that in, and you want to go harder too, depending on like how good of a guitar you have for tapping. This guitar, not a guitar for tapping, but I make it work. But when you tap down, you go. Oh, I'm off. But when you're tapping, it's like. So when you're tapping with your other hand, you're tapping those complementary chords. And I think of it in shapes. So I have a line. And this is kind of like Florida. Because I'm going up kind of for that peninsula. At least it looks like Florida in my direction. It might not for yours. But when the other technique that's incorporated is pull-offs and hammer-ons. So the trick to really making this feel full is you tap on. And then you hit down with this finger. And you hear how it rings out. You want to practice it, but if you have it, it doesn't fill as much. But when you get it to hold down, so on, off, let it ring down and press down really hard. So that note kind of carries through, kind of like when you play acoustic if you hit an open string, or like use like differentiated picking. It's the same thing. So it's on, off, on, tap, tap. Tap, tap. And then it switches to the other one too. So now we're in like Florida town. But it just repeats going down. And another cool thing you can do, like kind of once you get that kind of muscle memory down, it's just kind of, I don't know, I'm just going down each time. So it's like down, down, but you could make it come back up too, where it's like. Come up, or you can even have it stretch across more than 3 strings too, and incorporate like I don't know, 5-note chords or 6-note chords or 7-note chords on a 7 string. I haven't done that, but you could try it. But the riff all together, incorporating the hammer-ons, the tapping, and like the hammer-ons, it sounds like this. The thing at the end was just a bend. So bending's fun. So just keep it held on instead of letting go and bend. I bent up towards myself to make it go up. Or maybe that's down. It'll go whichever way. Unless you're playing a fretless, good luck. Don't do fretless. But yeah, that's kind of the riff and how it came together. But if you're thinking about trying tapping, again, just start with your root chords. Find your complementary ones. And just experiment with. And once you get those down, you can kind of really build a cool kind of landscape of sounds all by yourself as a single guitarist. But yeah, that's it. Woohoo. Time match.